Hello, this is Pixie doing the video. Just a quick one really. So I got this is a face mask. Yeah, it's quite easy to make these things. So, hey presto. Oh, it falls off. Getting around here, that's what it's about. There we go. This instant's pretty straightforward. And with glasses you can set it to make this shape. You could, particularly you could sew it differently, maybe around here. And it might be difficult to see, but see, it's pretty simple design. It might see better this way. All I've done is folded it. There's your elastic band. So you got your hexagon, well, you got your rectangle shape. So I folded that several times. So that's probably 3 layers there, and then you put it over here so that it covers, makes another. So 3. Yeah, you've got potentially 6 layers of material there. And then you've got your elastic band just back on your ears. Obviously you've got to put it next to your face before you can, I mean I can get away with that because I pinch it now. But otherwise it would just flop open, so you obviously got to put it on your face before you pull the straps across. But very easy to make. I might get some more material and make a load of these. I mean I could sew it. These elastic bands, I just went to a place called the Range, just bought these large elastic bands, so I've got a whole mixture of sizes potentially. The problem is I was getting, I might have it in here, so I've got some different ones. I've got a blue one. This is them old bananas, but there's I've got the England one. There we go. When I first experimented, I was thinking, do I need to put? You could put elastic band to keep it on there, but it makes it kind of like a bow shape. But this one here, these are the masks that I got provided from work. The problem is they're just so tight. It's like quite a small face, female face. Maybe it's built for someone who's Chinese. Maybe, I don't know. Some sort of slim face. But the problem is it crushes on the nose. And I jokingly said to some chap, I'd end up with a boxer's nose. It'd be flat by the end of it. So there we go. There we go. So this mask, I had a kind of, I'd say it's kind of like a paranormal experience, a little bit. And I was finished work and I was just going towards my car, and then I heard this bzz, 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 and I thought, I have a bloody mozzie in my ear, and it's such a weird, it's like you think in your head, is it just like the flapping of the wings, or is it trying to almost say something in your ear? But anyway, there was nothing there, and I went home and I went to sleep, and then I saw this image in my face. It was very strange. The being was unusual in the fact that it had a kind of like mushroom type part of its head was mushroom shaped, and then it had a face a bit like that with a beak, a bit like a tortoise, the way a tortoise face would look. And I saw it there, and I thought, I said, well, where are you? So I'm in your room. I thought, whoa, in my head, so I've tried to communicate. But I think what it represents, I haven't got any mushrooms growing in my place. And I asked him what it was, and he told me he was a type of troll. So like some type of earth being. It's kind of, so this is like a plane of existence, but the consciousness of other realms, I guess, border into this one as well. And so that's kind of represented the consciousness of something possibly was part mushroom. But then if you look at the legends and different, I guess some of the folklore around things like orcs, goblins, is that they grown from the earth. They're literally like they're literally like, I think, gnomes or something like that. They're kind of earth-dwelling spirits that have sort of formed a life form like mushrooms. That's why the idea, if you kill an orc, that basically more will come back, because it potentially will grow from the spores of his body. So it's kind of a weird one. But it seems strange, but to be honest, as human life and ourselves are occupied by these, our mitochondrial DNA is a sort of RNA connection to our DNA, and it can be regulated and altered by bacteria living in your body, as well as by your DNA itself. So it's kind of a very strange interlayered process. So there's probably bacteria in my stomach that haven't existed outside of my family line or something. So I think we picked them up from our mothers. That's what we'd usually do. And the other thing is when we're in embryonic fluid, we usually go to the toilet in there as well. So we're absorbing our urine, we're absorbing our fetus. It's all mashed. But it's a fairly sterile environment. But what's going on there is a mixture of different things, and so it's coating the whole body with bacteria before you're even born, and then on the way out you get loads of bacteria that you kind of integrate with. I think it'd be important for humans to study this. So if you can cultivate, let's say you have a child that's had a C-section, that you could spray it with a bacteria because it misses out that part of it. They say it can make it more autoimmune sort of sensitive. Might have things like eczema and stuff, the child, because it didn't have the bacteria from its mother. So there's things like the thrush, the virus, or the thrush, there is a bacterial virus, and there's some other things that are in the birth canal. And so if you had a concoction that you sprayed the child with, at least it would give it a level of this immunity that it would be kind of fostered or donated. It's the same for the lungs, to be honest. We were worried about this E. coli, not E. coli. We were worried about the corona. There's E. coli in your poo, basically, so it's brown. When you go to the toilet, it's doing for a turd, it's about 80% of that is E. coli. But if you looked at what's in the lungs of a healthy lung, you'd find that it's not a sterile environment, and it's got certain bacteria living in there. And if you can cultivate the right bacteria, the one that makes you more healthy, that'd be fine. And it's the same for people that put on weight and people that are slim, because what the bacteria does is it also switches on and off hormones and other switches in the body. It starts reacting with them. It's not the enemy. It's just controlling that. It's controlling some of the metabolic function in your stomach. Some people are thin because they've got certain types of bacteria in there. Don't allow them to put on any weight. But some of them have got unhealthy types of bacteria. Like I've seen people that are very slim, but they've got extreme eczema. They've got all blotchy skin. And I'm almost tempted to say, have you, I don't want to be rude, have you tried fasting? You've obviously, not to be rude, you've obviously got some type of food allergy. You're taking the food on a regular basis, and you've also got some type of bacteria in your stomach that doesn't agree with the rest of your body, and it's triggering higher sensitive immune responses, or the lack of it. Maybe it's too sterile the stomach. But people should be aware of these things. They should teach it at school that your gut bacteria regulates other processes in your body, immune responses, and that your immune system, without any bacteria or any other thing, would go rogue a little bit and end up. It would be fairly more difficult to tell the friend and the enemy. And I think as a longer a virus lives in a body, the more difficult it is to tell it. It basically has to watch its behaviour, and then when it starts triggering inflammation and cellular damage, the immune system says there's something not right with what's this thing in our body, because a virus will use your own DNA to replicate itself, some of it. So it's got some of your genes in there, some of your almost like markers. So it's hiding. It's almost like wearing the clothes. It's like, you can't recognise me, but it's actually a different colour underneath. So it's like something's not quite right about that one. So that's that's sort of interesting stuff. I think I've covered about hybridization of viruses. But yeah, so I'm trying to figure out this kind of being, what it represents. But it's kind of, you could say, well, you just imagine that. But the thing is, that thought came into my head for no reason. And I wasn't thinking about mushrooms or anything like that. It was just this image, and then I kind of worked with that image. And like I say, I think it's just really, there's an interlaced, the way this universe is. There's different layers. There's things in the environment you can't see. You can't see all these germs and things flying, because it's almost the perspective of a god. These things are minuscule. They have a meaning to the greater being. It's just they're just not really on the radar at the same level. If you could take it all in, it'd be quite, imagine that if you see clouds of viruses and bacteria and things, different colours around you that they represent, you would be afraid to go out, possibly. You think, I'm trying to breathe some of it in, all that sort of stuff. Or breathing it out, you might have a partner, you saw these cloud of bacteria coming out of them. Or if you could see their skin, you see all this like contaminated skin. So really, it's about having healthy cultures in the body and figuring out what that is, and how do the bad cultures interact with the good cultures. The good cultures keep the bad ones at bay, you need the bad ones to they represent a kind of marker, a goalpost or something. So your body has something to work. It needs to know what the enemy is. It needs to know what that type of thing is. Once you've encountered that, you learn from that experience. So it's like how about life. If you want to determine good and evil, you need to experience something that you'd consider dark to set your goalpost further, or your marker. So something positive. You think, well, that's extremely bad, and this must be good then. But that doesn't always work that way, kind of thing. But I think the other thing I want to touch upon is I hear a lot of now there's people that in the kind of New Age, what are they, New Age community, and some of them are very caught up within the divine feminine, but they need to realise it's not like with the yin yang. I might say that's female, male. It's not quite like that. There's degrees of male and female. That's why there's different types of women and there's different types of men out there. So it's kind of like the degrees on a compass is not so clear cut, and I think that's quite true of a lot of things in reality. Is that there's different degrees of them, rather than this polarity of opposites, because it generates this sort of weird behaviour. So, oh, well, water, the grand feminine, the rise of the female, something like that. I thought, great, but it's always been there. It's just that you're in tuned more into a type of consciousness, and a lot of it connects to some forms of astrology and influences in the universe, because it's cycles. So we have the day and night here in the universe, the cycle of the planets. It takes ages to move that across in our perspective, but for that it might be a minuscule amount of time. It's almost like the sleep to wake state, or you've gone through different emotional states. If a kind of universal consciousness exists, the sort of larger, like the solar system's an intelligent entity that's a representation of God, or one aspect of that. So it's for small phases in our cycle. For us, it's massive, maybe massive changes. But it's important to tune into all of the aspects, because you're ignoring certain degrees by. So the thing is, people with a new age mind, they're still using an old age system of the left brain, A to B, right and wrong. There's not always like that. It might be kind of not. It's not the best right, or the best wrong, or whatever the best outcome, but it might get the same result. So that's quite important. And also, you don't want people to mirror and keep on repeating what other people say. I'd rather that they took that on, read it, understood it, analysed it, and to try to adapt their own truth from that, because that's constructive and useful. There was something I saw about, because of the liberties and the constraints in China, they lacked the creativity. Because of that, they can't just produce something. They need all this permission and rules and stuff. So the problem is that the Chinese said, well, we've got needs in our market. I tell you what, we're going to take what already exists out in other countries and say it's ours. So it's just basically intellectual stealing. I mean, it's okay to take on an idea and create your own version, but they're literally copying it, these models. This was issued with cars and phones and other things like that, until they started making their own brand. Like Huawei should really be is an innovation, so it should be celebrated. Maybe that's why there's been a clamp down the West saying it's like spying and all this stuff for the government. I think anything connected to China will have that element, but then it's like the same with Google. It's tracking tracking everywhere I go, where I walk, how far I drive, all sorts of things. People that worried about with the surveillance stuff, they might look at where they live, look at where they go on the Google Maps, and then you'll get a fine in the post. That's an instant thing. If you've travelled several hundred miles and it's a lockdown, unless you can justify why you've done that, you'll get fines. The police don't even have to check up on you. So that's one thought anyway. Right, okay. Anyway, it's a big sign off from this video. I think it's a lovely day. I'm gonna have a little bit of a meditation session, and I will speak to you soon. Okay, bye.